What does an alien look like?
You know what aliens look like? They're like little green people with antennas that take me to you.
Imagine this. A cabbie enlists to help protect two siblings with paranormal powers from an organization that wants to use the kids for their nefarious plans. I am today's host, Nathan, and I'll be explaining 2009's Race to Witch Mountain. It all begins how most UFO movies begin, that is with an alien craft flying through space at incredible speeds and ultimately crashing on Earth. Sorry guys. It's the only way to begin such a viewing. The American government is already all over it. They saw it breach the Earth's atmosphere and soon rally their forces to the crash site. A certain Henry Burke is contacted to head out there with his team. He is some sort of alien hunter like in the movie Men in Black. Carson, an officer, picks him up in the company of a subordinate named Pope. Meanwhile, we meet Jack for the first time. He is a cabbie who works on the Las Vegas Strip. The alien crash happened somewhere in the desert, not too far outside the city. Jack's first passengers for the night happen to be some cosplay fans mimicking the Star Wars clones. The Knight is still young, and as time passes on his job, he is privileged to pick one Dr. Friedman up. She is a UFO expert scheduled to give a lecture at a convention in the city. They eventually exchange contacts, although Jack thinks people who believe in such things as UFOs and aliens are nutjobs. After his lunch break at the cab car park, Jack heads out to resume work, but two gangsters who work for a crime boss try to convince him to come work for them. But Jack evades them with the help of a police patrol squad passing by. As he leaves the park, he is startled by two teenagers who boarded his cab without him knowing. They request to be taken to a very specific location and offer him a big payday for the job. Their names are Seth and Sara, and they seem strange enough, so much so that the government considers them persons of interest and is already onto them. Henry and his men trace the teens down to the number plate of Jack's cab. Jack drives the teenagers into the desert as they requested. He tries to chat them up, but they soon realize they are being followed by Henry and a convoy. Seth and Sara have already sensed that they are in danger, but Jack dismisses their fears. So he slows down and tries to wave the convoy past. But Henry and his men engage with hostile intent. They sandwich the cab from all sides and try to stop it, but Jack is a great cab driver. He outwits them. But then, Seth does something extraordinary. He phases out of the cab and totals the SUV carrying Henry by simply standing in its way. Sara, on her part, controls the cab telepathically as they all leave the scene. They are soon at their desired destination, which is a ramshackle and abandoned log house. They pay Jack his money and exit the cab. Jack thinks they overpaid as he holds a good bundle of cash in his hands. He tries to tell them, but then he hears a sound in the cabin and moves to investigate. He finds Sara and Seth inside all hush-hush. With the help of a palm-sized device, they open a secret door. It leads them to an underground habitat. It does look alien and all, with organic pods growing everywhere. Seth and Sara do their magic and retrieve the equivalent of an alien hard drive. The information on it is what they came for. Just then, they hear a sound. It seems they were followed. This time around, it's not Henry and his men. It's an alien assassin the teenagers refer to as Siphon. It throws away Jack like he was a cat and starts to fire at them and the pods. It's not long before the whole place is ablaze as the trio barely escape. Siphon is still tracking them as Jack hides the cab in a tunnel. They are almost close to being discovered. Until Siphon's drone moves on. Jack restarts his engine and moves the car forward. The drone is still there, and it pursues them into yet another tunnel. But this time, it is different because there is an oncoming train on the tracks. Jack can't drive fast enough to avoid crashing into the train, so Sara helps by taking over control of the car with her mind. They barely avoid the train as it gets to the tunnel, but the train crashes into the alien drone. Sara then goes on to prove that they are actual aliens.
But you can't expect me to believe that...
I have the ability to do it because you haven't learned to use your full brain capacity.
The next stop is a car repair shop. Jack then takes them to a diner and starts to seriously consider ditching the teenagers. Sara, who is telepathic, picks up on his thoughts. Jack is subsequently embarrassed. The truth is, he doesn't want to be here, so he tries to sell the idea to Sara and Seth. He thinks they ought to be with someone at NASA or the CIA even. Tina, who is a waitress working at the diner, comes over, and just then, Jack receives a call from Henry telling him to surrender Sara and Seth to the government. Jack would rather not. So he tries to create a diversion by reporting Henry and his men to the sheriff, who just happens to be at the diner.
Officially my town. That makes it my business.
And with Tina's help, they leave there through a hatch door in the roof. On their way to the cab, Sara telepathically befriends a dog, to Jack's disapproval. Sara also brings up the subject of Dr. Alex, the UFO expert, just as Seth insists they have to get back their ship taken by the government. And so their next stop is the alien convention, where Dr. Alex is scheduled to speak. She is already giving a lecture in one of the halls. Her audience comprises regular space fans who are not necessarily concerned with space science. They start to ask her stupid questions unrelated to the lecture, like whether she was abducted and brainwashed and the like. She can't answer them, and so her lecture is over before it has even begun properly as the fanboys and girls leave. Step in Jack with Seth and Sara. Dr. Alex doesn't recognize him as the cab driver from earlier. Jack wants to talk to her somewhere super private. Once there, he tries to explain Seth and Sara to Dr. Alex, but she is skeptical at first and thinks it's a joke until Sara and Seth show their special alien powers. They also show her their home galaxy using some kind of alien tech projector. They explain they are here to prevent a full-blown invasion of Earth by proving that their home planet can still be habitable using information gathered by their parents. Dr. Alex is eventually convinced, and she decides to help them retrieve their ship. They go over to one of her colleagues, whose ears are always on the wire concerning the latest developments in the UFO tracking field. His name is Harlan, and he tells them the ship is probably being kept at a top-secret facility called Witch Mountain. So that is where they ought to be headed. On their way out of the venue, Dr. Alex takes a detour to get her personal belongings. And in a moment of distraction, Seth and Sara leave Jack's side. He starts to frantically look for them amongst the crowd. Meanwhile, Siphon, the alien assassin, crashes the convention party and Henry with his men. Jack eventually finds Seth and Sara engrossed in viewing a stage play reenacting the odd Star Trek episode. Ultimately, they elude both Henry's men and Siphon for the time being. The casino floor is crawling with Henry's agents as Jack together with Seth and Sara zig and zag through the crowd. But they end up being cornered. Then Sara telepathically controls the slot machines just so everyone playing becomes a winner. In the ensuing jubilation, they all escape as Henry's men follow close behind in hot pursuit. The car chase is intense and goes on for a while through the streets until squad cars are able to surround the cab. Henry screams the usual, "Step out of the car with your hands raised." The officers get closer and are surprised. It's someone else entirely driving the cab, Harlan, from earlier. He even throws in a witty remark to Henry and his men for good measure. Meanwhile, Jack and the rest are far gone by now, headed towards Witch Mountain in Harlan's RV truck. Dr. Alex starts up a conversation with Jack about how the stars literally align to bring them all together at that very moment. They soon get close enough to Witch Mountain, and Jack tries to hide the RV with the use of some bushes. They use a pair of binoculars to scan the perimeter. The entrance to the mountain facility is heavily guarded, and as Jack and the rest regroup to come up with a plan, Seth and Sara are shot with some tranquilizer darts. Jack and Dr. Alex are subsequently driven away on Henry's orders as he takes custody of the teens. On the way out, Jack and Dr. Alex seize control of their transport by neutralizing their escorts.
By the way, that slap? Very realistic.
And so it's back to the mountain to rescue the teens. Meanwhile, the teens have been secured to their beds in a bright white lab as the experiments on them are about to proceed. Jack and Dr. Alex soon find a way into the mountain through a tunnel. As they climb in, they realize it's an exhaust pipe and barely avoid becoming toast. An alternate tunnel leads them straight into the facility proper. They sneak in, and as they make their way closer to the teens, an alarm comes on. Apparently, Siphon has decided to show up, and he makes easy work of the facility's security personnel and protocol, who have all concentrated their energy on him. They simply can't contain him in all his alien assassin glory. Consequently, everyone abandons the teens, so Jack and Dr. Alex get in and resuscitate them.
I'm gonna get you out of here.
Seth and Sara soon locate their spaceship, and Dr. Alex tries to create a diversion to clear out the hangar full of the scientists. Henry and his men are en route to the same hangar and meet the scientists who report that they were told to evacuate. At the hangar, Seth starts up their spaceship and opens its doors. Just then, Henry arrives with all his men as they point their guns at Seth and the rest. Seth and Sara join hands with Dr. Alex and Jack as the bullets start flying, but somehow, both Jack and Dr. Alex don't get hurt. Siphon interrupts everything yet again and starts to fire at Henry's men. This buys Seth and Sara some time as they try to fly out of the mountain. They even knock Siphon down on their way out. As they fly, a technical problem arises, and Jack has to check it out. It would seem, Siphon has somehow managed to hitch a ride too. Jack engages him in a one-sided fight, obviously. Seth hands over control of his side of the ship to Dr. Alex so he can go help Jack. And together, they are able to overpower Siphon and throw him into the warp drive, where he is pulverized. They soon park the ship to say their final goodbyes, and Jack sheds a tear or two as Dr. Alex praises the teens. Sara hands over the care of her newly acquired dog friend to Jack and a tracking device for future correspondence. Soon enough, they both board their ship and zoom away. The end. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from Imagine This, and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.